Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I have a chalk drawing to share with you. This is for the letter K. This is for our Islamic Waldorf inspired main lesson block on the letters. Alright, so I'm going to erase my chalkboard. These are small portable chalkboards. They're lightweight and they're easy to mount. They are by waldorfsupplies.com and they are 22 inches by 32 inches. I'm also using my Sargent Art chalk pastels. I really like these because they have a nice, rich, vibrant color. But I start out with a border which I end up kind of erasing later on. So I really like the look of the border on some of the previous chalk drawings that I did, and I am really low on my chalks and I haven't pulled out my new set yet, and so I decided to use some of the chalks that I had a ton of extra color on, which is that red-orange that you can kind of see peeking out on the side for the border, and it looks terrible and I end up just kind of covering over it later. So this is for the letter K and the word king. This is for the story of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam and King Jalut and Talut. So this king that I'm drawing is a fictitious king. It is neither of those kings. I am just drawing a king so that it can look like the letter K, and I am struggling with this a ton. I am trying to make a cape on the back of him, but I don't want the cape to be too long or too big because I really want the letter K to really show through. I want to make sure that I have this prominent in the chalk drawing and then put everything else in the background later. But I'm struggling with it quite a bit because it's not quite looking the way that I want, and I'm trying to draw, I think it's called a scepter in his hand to really accentuate that part of the letter K. I'm going to come back to it. This is just kind of like the rough draft part. I just do this with like a gray or a white chalk, and then I'm going to do everything kind of around and behind him. I've got some green rolling hills, and I'm going to add like a stream on the side and a tree and then a blue sky. I thought having kind of a rich colored background will be nice for this drawing, since a lot of the previous drawings that I've done in this series are warm tones and desert scenes, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of change it up a little bit. I also did change up the story last minute, and I also changed the drawing and to go along with the letter. So originally, actually, I should back up and say that I have done king in the past for this letter, but more recently I did Kaaba for the letter K, and you could see the letter K in the drapes of the fabric that covered the door of the Kaaba, and that's how you could see the K. But because we had done the Kaaba so much in previous drawings, and because the story of the building of the Kaaba is part of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam's story, because we have done him so much already in this series, I decided in the last minute to change it up and do Prophet Dawood alayhi salam's story instead, because that involved kings and you can easily get the letter K in the shape of the king. However, if you are recreating these lessons and you prefer not to draw a person, then I would recommend doing the story of the building of the Kaaba. You can also do the rebuilding of the Kaaba during Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time if you prefer, just to add a different story in the mix, and you can get that letter, that shape of the letter, in the drapes of the door. And yes, you have to kind of take some artistic liberties in order to get that, and anyway, none of these drawings are historically accurate as they are. It's mainly for inspiration and imagination for these stories. So if you prefer not to draw people, then that is an option. I tried to draw this kind of faceless, but the way that it looks right now, the king looks more like a skeleton. It was a little bit frightening. So I do add some more to the face, but I just leave it without eyes for the most part. I did have to dot where the eyes would go just so I could get some perspective on how to draw it. Drawing people and animals is just not my thing, so it's really challenging for me. Alright, so I was drawing the stream off screen, so I apologize for that, but you'll be able to get a closer look at it a little bit later. I'm kind of going back and forth on what I need for this drawing, from the background of the hills and then the foreground with just a big wide open expanse of greenery, and I wanted a little bit more contrast and a little bit more detail, and it was hard to achieve that, but in the end it actually looks really good. And here's a tip, that sometimes you don't really see the whole chalk drawing as it should be seen because you're so close to it. And when you step back a little bit, all the imperfections that you noticed when you were up close actually just go away, and it makes for a really nice drawing. So don't despair if you are struggling a lot with this, because once you pull back from it, actually the farther back you go, the better it's going to look. So that's one tip about this. Also, copying is another tip. If you're kind of at a loss of what to do, copying is a great tip. But because all of these drawings are original for me, it is quite a struggle. There are a couple that I have used other text and other drawings as inspiration, but for the most part, all of these drawings are coming out of my imagination, and so it is quite a challenge for me. So you'll see a lot of similar elements in a lot of these drawings, like the rolling hills in the background, which are really easy to do and can add some color and depth to your drawing, or trees or rivers, things that are simple and the shape is pretty easy to achieve. Those make nice details in your drawings. All right, so this story is about Prophet Dawood alayhi salam when he defeats the giant, and this is with the kings of the king Talut and Jalut. And part of the story, there is a stream, and the king had told his army not to drink from the stream, and if you're really thirsty, you could have a couple of sips, and all those who really drank and satisfied their thirst were not permitted to fight. And so there is a stream off to the right, and that is part of the story. If you were adventurous or really talented, or you just wanted to do this, I would recommend doing an army in the background. I avoided doing those kinds of details because I've noticed that my daughter ends up drawing everything that she sees in the chalk drawing. So in a Waldorf main lesson, the chalk drawing can have more detail and can be the inspiration for the lesson, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to draw all of that into your main lesson book. For your main lesson book, you really want the letter or the word with that letter kind of embedded within it to take the main stage of your drawing. You want it to be the highlight of your drawing. So you don't want a whole lot of other detail around it. But what has ended up happening is that my daughter will do the chalk drawing, or rather her crayon drawing, just the same. And so I avoided doing a lot of those other details, but I think that they would really add to this drawing. And if this was up in your classroom or homeschool room for a longer period of time, you may choose to add those details into your drawing over the course of a couple of days. We don't have a very flexible timeline for these lessons, and because this kind of work requires a lot of time and effort, I've tried to keep them as simple as possible. However, this drawing still took a half an hour to make. So this was one of the longest chalk drawings that I have done in this series so far. Really struggled with the king, but in the end, I really, really liked the way that he turned out. So I'm just adding a couple of details here, some pebbles and some rocks along the water line just for some detail. I'm trying to add some shading. This is something that I've been really trying to work on with my chalk drawings. I just think that it adds some depth and it just kind of draws you into the chalk drawing. So this is what it looks like in the end. I really like the way that this chalk drawing turned out, in part because I struggled with it so much, and I think it looks really inviting in the end and very imaginative. Alright, so if you'd like to see some of the other lessons in this Islamic Waldorf-inspired main lesson block on the letters, you can tap on the screen right now. If you're interested in this curriculum, you can find more information on my website at pepperandpine.com. And don't forget that if you want to see what our homeschool looks like on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at pepperandpine.